What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for March 21st, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Feel Good Friday edition of the podcast. The winds of March have certainly changed the weather as it is windy and chilly outside after a beautiful day yesterday, but it is a Feel Good Friday, so we will take it. Some quick housekeeping before we get started, and as I always say, I always try to make sure everything is accurate. Yesterday, when we were talking about the LaSalle National Championship team in 1954, I mistakenly said Frank Blatch, when in fact his name was Frank Blatcher. So I apologize to Frank and his family out there for mispronouncing his name. I also talked about the NIT, and before the NCAA tournament was what it is today, the NIT, today we look at the NIT as like, you weren't good enough to get into the tournament. It stands for not in tournament or whatever. But that was the premier tournament in the country. I believe it started around 1938. And then before that, there were just other invitational tournaments. But the NIT was sort of the premier one because it was in New York. And Temple has won that twice, 1938, the very first one. 1969, LaSalle in 1951, and then Villanova in 1994. And then right around 1950 is when things started to change. The NCAA tournament kind of did it regionally until then, and then they expanded. But I know I mentioned that, and I told you I was going to do a little bit of research on that. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and continue to spread the word. We've been setting records the past few weeks with listeners and streams and things like that. So let's keep this momentum rolling as we get ready to turn the page into April. Be sure to check out Lenny Wagner's book, Playing with the Best, One Man's Journey Through the Golden Era of Sports. It's basically a big collection of it's a biography on Walter French, but tells just the amazing story of Walter French. So many different avenues that he contributed to during his career. And as I keep mentioning, it is sort of a glimpse into what was going on in the country at the time, the history of sports, the history of the country. So it's not just a biography, which if you're a history person like I am, you're going to love it. I'm in the process of editing and doing some things with the interview I sat down with him last week, and that will start premiering April 1st with that. Anything you need, Lenny Wagner, Walter French related, though, there is a link in the description, so go check that out. It does have a book signing coming up on April 8th. But a quick little Walter French story here, since it is March Madness. We're talking tournament. Walter French played in the National Amateur Athletic Union basketball tournament in Atlanta in 1920 while playing for Rutgers, and it was Rutgers' first postseason tournament ever. That team is in the Rutgers Athletics Hall of Fame, and this tournament was sort of the precursor to the NIT even. But 16 teams were invited down to Atlanta to play over 4 days. Now, the Rutgers story is very interesting. Their coach couldn't make it. Their coach had business planned and couldn't make it. So the team got on a train, but not the whole team, just the 5 starters. So they went to this tournament down in Atlanta from New Jersey to play 4 days, 5 players, no subs, just on their own. They had a chaperone, but basically on their own, they coached themselves. They made it to the final and lost to, I believe it was NYU, who was one of the premier teams in the country. So just an amazing testament to what Walter French's athletic ability is. Stories like that are throughout the book, so be sure to check out Playing with the Best, One Man's Journey Through the Golden Era of Sports, the story of Walter French. But yeah, could you imagine today the coach just saying, I can't make it, so you can't even take the whole team, no managers, nothing, just the 5 starting players. They coached themselves and made it all the way to the final. Pretty cool.
It's time for Fridays with AI, where we ask AI to rewrite Philly sports history. Every Friday only on This Day in Philly Sports History.
That's right. It is time for Fridays with AI. And we're going to do it a little differently today. Instead of asking AI to rewrite Philly sports history, I asked AI this week to write Philly sports history. As we know, the Phillies open up on Thursday. This is the last Fridays with AI before the Phillies opening day. So I decided, why not ask AI to simulate the 2025 Phillies season? It was an interesting one. It looks like if AI is correct, we're going to have a very interesting summer. Phillies start the season opening 15-5 or 15-5. Great start, great pitching, timely hitting. They kind of keep the momentum going that they've had so far this spring with the pitching as well as the hitting. Strom's shoulder still bothers him, but he battled through. Max Kepler re-injures his side. I'm assuming it's a side. It just said Kepler injured himself, so I don't know if it's a nagging injury from what he did before. But those injuries certainly hamper the Phillies early, but they were able to overcome it. Then June comes and they go into their normal slump where nobody hits. Great pitching, but nobody can hit. But feeling confident that they're getting it out of the way in June. By the All-Star break, they climb back into the NL East race, which is a good thing because it's not a prolonged slump like we're used to seeing them have. The starting pitching, excellent all year, top to bottom. Going into September, it's the Phillies and the Braves battling for the division title. The Phillies sweep the Marlins in a late September series at Citizens Bank Park. A couple of walk-offs, dramatic fashion. Go into first place, stay in first place, win the NL East. They finish the season. Now get this. The Phillies finished the season 98-64 behind the strong pitching. AI kept hammering home the fact that the starting pitching is really what carried this team. They really avoided an extended full team slump as well, like they had last year and like we've seen in the postseason and past. Bryce Harper had an MVP type year. Hits 312, 36 homers, 108 RBIs. Schwarber hits in the cleanup spot most of the season, and his average boosted from being there. He hits 278, 32 homers, 95 RBI. And how does Trey do in the leadoff spot? Pretty much what we expect from Trey Turner. Inconsistent all year, hits 299, does have a 375 on base percentage, only steals 18 bases though. But him being at the top of the order kind of sets the tone for Bryce and Kyle and the rest of the guys. Christopher Sanchez emerges as a bona fide number one starter. Zach Wheeler, goes 17-5, 2.98 ERA, 205 strikeouts. Aaron Nola has an Aaron Nola-like year, 3.20 ERA, 175 Ks. But the key, the starting pitching was great all year, but the Phillies kind of find their Ryan Madson, Brad Lidge sort of combo in a Ryan Corcoran and Jose Alvarado. Alvarado plays the role as the closer. Corcoran plays the role as the bridge to Lidge. And both of those guys really hold down the back end of that bullpen. They do make a trade. They don't sit on their hands like they did last year. They make a trade for Vlad Guerrero Jr. Bryce moves to the outfield. Vlad plays first base. And all the talk throughout the season now, are they going to extend Vlad Guerrero? What's going to happen? And Vlad certainly helps the offense. It's part of what helped get them out of that slump that they were in heading into July. Gets them back into the NL East race and ultimately puts them over the hump. Now for the postseason. They do get the bye. They're the second seed behind the Dodgers, who won 101 games. But in the first round, the surprising Chicago Cubs win the NL Central this year. But the Phillies, tough matchup against them, goes 5 games, tight series. But the Phillies do beat the Cubs in the NLDS, setting up the dramatic and epic matchup in the NLCS against the Dodgers. And this goes a little bit better than what you might expect. Phillies go 7 games, ultimately lose to the Dodgers in 7 games in what was a back and forth close series. So we don't win the World Series this year, but it's an exciting year. But a lot of questions this fall now. What do you do with the team? They're a year older. Do you re-sign Vlad Guerrero? So there you have it. If you're keeping track of the other teams in the NL East, the Mets have a terrible season, take a step back. They're somewhat competitive, but injuries all year for the Mets. And the Miami Marlins are the surprise team in the NL East. They finish in 3rd place, have some good young pieces. But the talk of obviously is, will they trade them? Will they keep them? And things like that. So according to AI, Phillies finished 98-64, go back-to-back on the NL East, make it to the NLCS before losing to the Dodgers in 7 games. Starting pitching is solid. Christopher Sanchez emerges as a star. Bryce Harper has an MVP-like year. But we're left with the same questions we had going into next offseason, which I kind of see. So, as we always do on Fridays with AI, question of the day. And I don't want to get into a lot with your predictions yet because I'm going to do that next week. But can the Phillies repeat this year as division champions? Everybody's talking about everything else about this team. Can they repeat as division champions in a tougher division this year, knowing that injuries happen, guys have off seasons and things like that? I certainly think they can. I do think the 98 wins predicted by AI is a tad bit high, but we'll see. I would take a 98 win season this year. It means a fun summer and everything like that. But let me know your thoughts. Can the Phillies repeat as champions of the NL East? 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. Get that. Anything else Phillies sports related off your chest. And then we do have some Phillies news. One of the position battles has been settled, and I don't think this is a surprise. I see some people kind of, oh no, Garrett Stubbs, but I think, and Dave Dombrowski even said it, it's a business decision. Stubbs has options left where Marchand didn't. And if you put Marchand on the AAA team, you run the risk of losing him. So Garrett Stubbs will start the season in AAA. Rafael Marchand is the backup to JT Realmuto. So looking forward to seeing what he has. But we are officially less than a week away from the Phillies opener. All right, let's recap yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, your team's not playing. In our case, it's the Eagles. March Madness or the Super Bowl? 88% of you agree with me that March Madness is a great spectacle and one of the best sporting events there is. A lot of people said March Madness, it doesn't matter if your team's playing or not, it's still exciting. Everybody can get into it with a bracket, some sort of pool. Dave from Scranton said, well, let's preface this with the Thursday, Friday, maybe the Saturday, Sunday of the first weekend, because I'm watching the Super Bowl over the Final Four. And that's a great point because I agree. There are times where I won't watch the Final Four, especially if my bracket is busted. So there is that little caveat. The first weekend of the season March Madness is the greatest. But thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. Today's question of the day, can the Phils repeat as NL East champions? Get your answers into the Back to the Future voice and text line or any of my social media, 267-495-8531. Be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Great things going on with their Sports Fan Network. Steven, who runs it, is a great dude, good friend of mine. We talk quite frequently. So go to theclashingconferences.com, see what they're all about, see where you can get involved. Their podcasts are available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And then Philly Goat, it's chilly today, but it's going to get warm. So go check out what they have, the tees, the shoes, the slides, you name it, they got it. I'm looking for the golf shirt today. Go. I mean, I can't even do them justice. There's a new Howie Roseman shirt. The fans are always popular, the Philly Fanatic Canvas Loafers. So just go check out what they have to offer. Be sure to use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com, promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, Flyers lose 3-2 to the Capitals. Longest tenured athlete in Philadelphia, Sean Couturier, had a goal for the Flyers, who had a furious comeback in the third period, but just couldn't get it done. They remain fifth in the lottery standings for the NHL. They are in Dallas tomorrow, another tough game. Like I said, I think we're officially putting a fork in the playoff hopes of the Flyers. Now it's all about getting as high of a draft pick as we can get. Sixers in San Antonio tonight with a big game. They're trying to keep pace with the Nets, who moved a half a game ahead of them for the fifth spot in the NBA draft lottery standings. So let's go Spurs. And I wanted to mention this. We were talking a lot about March Madness this week. And if you watched any of the March Madness, and maybe it's just me, but there's the Coke Zero commercial where they're singing the fight songs. And at the end, it says something to victory. It sounds very, very familiar to the Eagles fight song, Fly, Eagles, Fly. I don't know if that's just me, and I got Eagles on my brain all the time, and that's what I'm hearing. But let me know your thoughts on that. Because the end of the commercial is, and we get the victory, or we go to victory, and like, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that, and maybe the Fly, Eagles, Fly was stolen. Who knows? But I just wanted to point that out because I'm like, watch it. Like, I'm not paying it full attention. I have it over here on my iPad while I was working, and I'm like, wait a minute. That sounds very familiar. And then last night, as I actually was able to pay attention to that, that's totally Fly, Eagles, Fly. So birds are everywhere, baby. But let me know if I'm the only one that was hearing that. All right, today we have two different events, very different, I guess, in their scope. First, we're going to go back to 1958. And on this day in 1958, the Temple Owls were playing in their second Final Four in 2 years and lost a heartbreaker in Kentucky's Freedom Hall 61-60 to the Kentucky Wildcats, who had the home court advantage. Temple led by 3 in this game with 55 seconds left, and then Kentucky hit a layup with 16 seconds left. Overall, just poor free throw shooting down the stretch for Temple is what cost them. Kentucky would go on to win the national title. Temple would go on to win the consolation game, which they don't do anymore. But a game that certainly was there to be won for Temple as they lose to the Kentucky Wildcats 61-60 in the Final Four. Temple was led by All-American and future Hall of Famer Philadelphia native Guy Rogers, whose number 5 hangs in the rafters of the Liacouras Center. But likely, this was the closest that Temple had ever gotten to a national championship, even with the Chaney teams. They had the lead in this game and could not get it done, losing 61-60 to Kentucky. And then 2004, it was the end of an era. On this day, Veterans Stadium was imploded. Home of the Phillies, home of the Eagles from 1971 to 2003. And I mean, what can I say about the Vet? If you can look over my left shoulder here, I have a little piece behind the blue foam finger. So many memories at that place. My first sporting event was the Phillies game in 1987. I remember those brown, yellow, and orange seats. So many memories at the Eagles games. I went to the first Phillies game post 9/11. Very emotional, great time. Went with my brother. I mean, so many Temple games back when we were able to get on the field and have like essentially front row seats. The place was a dump, though. Absolutely a dump, but it was our dump. One of the cookie cutter stadiums from the 70s. But so many memories in that place will always hold a special spot in my heart. But on this day, Veterans Stadium was imploded, paving the way for a parking lot for Citizens Bank Park. All right, finally today, our Big Fives Women's Hall of Fame Spotlight. is on Claudrena Harold, who is from Temple. She played there from 1994 to 1997 and was a scoring machine. She was two-time All-Big Five. Her 1,251 points was sixth all-time at the time of her graduation. Her 15.1 points per game is still top 5 all-time at Temple. And you know how I feel about this one. She was Atlantic 10 all-academic team as her senior. I love the academic portion of this. She was inducted into the Big Five Hall of Fame in 2008. She's in the Temple Hall of Fame. She was the Big Five Rookie of the Year, two-time All-A-10 selection. And today, though, she uses that all-academic team to her advantage. She is a professor and associate dean at the University of Virginia, as well as a published author 3 times over. She is Temple proud. She was there right before I got there at Temple. But Claudrena Harold, we salute you today as our Women's Big Five Hall of Fame spotlight. Temple proud, Temple made, Temple tough. On this day in 2004, Veterans Stadium was imploded, citing the end of an era. It was a dump, but it was our dump. In 1958, Temple loses to Kentucky 61-60 to lose in the Final Four in a game where they had a lead and blew it. And if you're a Temple fan from my era, you know a lot of times foul shooting is always what killed the Owls. And it killed them even back in 1958 as they lose the Final Four to Kentucky. We'll have more on the Flyers and Sixers and Phillies as we get the news in. Fridays with AI. AI says that AI says that the Phillies are going 98-64, winning the NL East and making it to the NLCS before losing to the Dodgers. What do you think? Can the Phillies repeat as NL East champions? I think they can. I mean, I think it's AI at least had the starting pitching aspect right. I think that starting pitching is going to be great this year, and it's going to have to carry the team. As of right now, I'm hearing reports that Vlad Guerrero, the Blue Jays are going to try to re-sign Vlad Guerrero now. But if the Phillies could get him and re-sign him to a contract, I wouldn't hate it in the least. So we'll see how close AI. We'll come back and revisit it at the end of the season. But this has been This Day in Philly Sports History for March 21st, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a feel-good Friday. I hope your bracket's not busted yet. I made it through the first day of the tournament without losing a Final Four team. That almost never happens, so I will take it. But go have yourselves a Friday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.